Hey Book Dragons, welcome back to my channel. It's time for a book review. Let's go! Thank you to my patrons. I really appreciate all you do to support the channel. So I recently read Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman, and I'm going to tell you all about it. But before I do, if you enjoy my content, make sure you're subscribing to my channel. And if you enjoy this video today, please make sure to like the video. It does help me with the algorithm and helps my video get seen by other people. And if you'd like to support me on Patreon, you can do that as well. My link is in the description below. Let's get right to the review. So this is a reread for me. I think I read this, oh gosh, it was many years ago. How old were my kids? It's been at least 10 years since I've read this book. And so it really felt like I was reading the book for the first time almost, because I'd forgotten a lot of stuff. And I actually listened to it on audiobook. I didn't read the physical book this time around. And I really enjoyed the audiobook. It is narrated by Neil Gaiman, and if you haven't heard Neil Gaiman narrate a book, then you're sorely missing out. He's a great narrator. He narrates most, if not all, of his audiobooks, so there you go, you gotta check him out. And the audiobook, like the newer editions of Neverwhere, like this one right here, also includes a short story called How the Marquis Got His Coat Back. And it's based on one of the characters, the Marquis de Carabas. It's really cool to have this edition, and I've got an illustrated edition here. There's pictures throughout, but as I said, I listened to the audiobook this time around, and it's also the author's preferred edition. So after writing the original book, he made updates and expansions to the story. And so what you're getting in this book, as well as in the audiobook, is his preferred text. And I think that's really cool that a lot of authors are doing that nowadays. So I'm going to break this review up into several sections. I'll talk about the setting of the book. I'll do a spoiler-free summary. We'll talk about some of the main characters. We'll also talk about some other notable characters and locations in the book. We'll talk about the magic system, we'll talk about some of the themes that the book explores, and then we'll end with my thoughts. Sound good? And away we go! Neverwhere is an urban portal fantasy set in modern day, in the 90s in London. And it's a simple portal fantasy, meaning that there's really only one portal. There's London above, and then there's a portal to London below. And it feels like a retelling of Alice in Wonderland, but with a male protagonist set in modern day, with inklings of the Wizard of Oz. And so I'll give you a brief overview of the story. Richard Mayhew is a corporate lemming with a mediocre life, engaged to a controlling fiancée. And one day he and his fiancée are roaming the streets of London, and they encounter this girl who's been injured. And Richard wants to help her. His fiancée does not. They're on their way to an appointment with her boss, and she doesn't want to be late. And she says, you know, if you leave me behind now, you know, our engagement is over, that sort of thing. And Richard decides to go ahead and help the injured girl, and he gets stuck in an alternate London below, and throughout the story he is trying desperately to get back to his former life. So let's talk about the characters now. The main character, of course, is Richard Mayhew. I've told you a little bit about him already. There's also the Lady Dor, which is the woman that he encounters who is injured. She is one of a whole family of nobles in London below. Her father Portico, her mother Portia, her brother Arch. So they're all named after doorways or entryways, right? And they had the magical ability to open doors to different areas. And in this case, she ends up opening a door to London above and encountering Richard. They're also a dynamic duo in the form of Mr. Croup and Mr. Vandemar, but this is not a heroic duo. This is a villainous duo, and they are assassins, hired thugs, who have been hired by a mysterious benefactor to hunt down Dor and kill her. And Mr. Croup and Mr. Vandemar, especially with the audiobook, reminded me of Cruella de Vil's thugs in 101 Dalmatians. I mean, if you've seen that movie, you know who I'm talking about. They are a spitting image almost of Cruella's thugs, with the exception of the fact that they are much more sinister in this novel. There's also a mysterious dignitary from London Below who's built his way up in the public eye for years since he was a child, named the Marquis de Carabas. And he has some ulterior motives, but he also owes a favor to Dor's father, Portico, and so he reluctantly agrees to help Dor avoid the thugs and figure out a way to avenge her father, who was murdered when she was a young child. There's also the Angel Islington, who lives in Islington. And then there is also a mysterious woman named Hunter, who is well known as an assassin, and she gets hired to be Dor's bodyguard. Now there are some other notable characters as well. There are the Rat Speakers, who are a bunch of city dwellers in London Below that can speak to rats and send them carrying messages and different things like that. One of the chief rats that they utilize is called Master Longtail, and so they can communicate with him and take orders from him, from other people, as well as vice versa, send messages to other people along with him. There's also the mushroom people, who serve all kinds of different mushrooms, one of which is called the mushroom on toast, and they expand their numbers by spraying spores into the environment around people that they want to recruit, and then those people come and join the mushroom people and serve the great mushroom. It's interesting. There are also the Velvets, who are kind of like vampires in the sense that they can suck the life out of someone. If they touch you or if they kiss you, they can suck the life out of you. And then there are also the Shepherds, the Raven's Court, which happen to hole up in what is known as Raven's Court in London Above, and the first time Richard encounters them, he's like, wait, there's actually people that the Raven's Court is named for? What's going on here? And then there is also the Blackfriars, who are actually real people. They're monks who live in Blackfriars Station. Different places in London Below have people who the locations in London Above are named after. And then one other notable location that comes up a lot in this story is the floating market. And it's just like you would think, it's in one place one time and it's in a completely different place the next time. And you can get all manner of trinkets there, foodstuffs, jewelry, other tangible items, and everybody has booths that they're trying to sell their stuff to you at. So now let's talk about the magic. London Below in general is just a weird magic land. There's all kinds of strange happenings going on, but then there's also the ability to open doors, which is the chief purview of Dora and her family members. And then there's also angel magic, which is pretty much limitless. The Angel Islington can do a whole lot of different things, heal and grant wishes and a whole bunch of different things. There are a lot of themes that are dealt with in the book as well. Homelessness is one. There are a lot of people in the story who have ended up somehow in London Below, and they're refugees of a sort. They don't have anywhere else to go, and they can't get back to their former life. So they're living this kind of in-between life and some of them join the floating market, others just wander around in kind of a Twilight Zone feeling almost. It also explores themes of ignorance, especially with Richard. Throughout the entire story, he keeps denying the things that are being shown plainly to him, like the existence of angels, the existence of magic, things that he has lived all his life thinking were myth, thinking were just stories. And he's lived a very sheltered life, a very mediocre life, and all of these things are happening to him that he's not prepared for, and he continues to persist in his ignorance. And it also explores themes of loss of innocence. That's mainly with Richard as well, because everything that he ever knew and thought was right about his life, it turns out is completely flipped upside down, and he has to come to terms with so many things about himself and things he wished that he had done differently, and now he has the chance to explore if he's willing to take the risk. In order to do that, he has to lose the innocence he's lived his life with up to this point. And so now comes the question, what did I think? And obviously, I absolutely loved the book. Neverwhere is a fantastic tale. It is so reminiscent of other different fairy tales, and this book definitely felt more akin to Alice in Wonderland. And it was just a really fantastic read. I'm so glad that I reread it, and at some point I want to read it with this physical book, because the first time I read it with a different edition. I didn't have this nice illustrated edition, but it's just a beautiful little book. It's really lightweight. It's not a big ginormous book at all, but it's got a lot of great illustrations in it by Chris Riddell. I do want to read it from the physical book at some point. Maybe I'll do that next year, who knows? But I just felt so many good vibes reading this book, and I had so much fun. It's so whimsical. It's so funny at different times, laugh out loud funny at certain points. Richard is a wonderful character, and all of the characters are just fantastic. My favorite characters in the story, I would have to say, are the Marquis de Carabas and the gentleman assassins, Mr. Croup and Mr. Vandemar. Those characters, even though Richard is great, those characters really make the book. And when you finish the book, there is a situation in the main story where the Marquis ends up losing his special coat, and that is what the short story at the end, how the Marquis got his coat back, that is where that story picks up, and it tells how he got it back. It's a really, really fun story. This is an absolute smashing read for me. In my opinion, it's a must-own, and I highly recommend you read it. So, my question to you is, have you read it? Let me know in the comments. Let me help convince you to read this book. And if you have read Neverwhere and you love it like I do, you know exactly what I'm talking about in this video. That means I'm preaching to the choir. Just a fantastic read. So, guys, that is the end of my Neverwhere review. Make sure that you are reading more books. I'll talk to you soon.